Hey everybody, it's GomletX, and welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today I'll be playing another premiere draft of Throne of Eldraine. Without further ado, let's just get into our Pack 1 Pick 1, which has some pretty sweet options, both of which are red. We've got Slaying Fire, 3 mana for 3 to any target is always good and limited, especially at instant speed, so that is a very reasonable card that can easily fit into any deck with just a single red source. And then the card that ties us a little more into red is Sir Kara the Bold, a 5 mana 3/3. Whenever she or an instant or sorcery deals combat damage to a player, we get to exile the top card of our library and we can play it this turn. And she can ping, she can tap to deal 1 to any target. So she can keep drawing us an extra card every turn by herself, but she's pretty slow, summoning sick when we play her, so not till the turn after does she start doing that, but that can still be a lot of card draw. Pretty interesting card, ties us more into red, pretty strong stuff overall. I still think I would rather take the Slaying Fire since it's a lot more open. We can splash it in easily off of a Golden Egg or two, and we don't need to be as heavy into red for it to be good. But if we do end up heavy in red, it does become incredible. 3 red, just 4 to any target is kind of insane at instant speed, so we'll take the Slaying Fire over the Sir Kara there, but Sir Kara could have been a little better. I don't know there. They're both very, very nice options. And speaking of 2 very nice options, once again, now we have Lock Dragon here. You want to be as deep into red and blue as possible, but then it's a 4 mana 3/2. When it enters the battlefield, you discard a card, draw a card, and when it attacks, you do the same. Plus, it's got flying as well, just a really nice dragon. Or there is Bake into a Pie for instant speed removal that also spits out a food token. Starting with a Slaying Fire here, continuing down the red path, maybe going into blue-red draw 2 does seem kind of powerful for me. We can go blue-red draw 2 or just like mono red with Lock Dragon, so I'll take the dragon. Bake into a Pie is definitely pretty much just as good. I think either way would be a perfectly fine way to take this draft. Pack 1 Pick 3. Now we'll be a little sad here. If we'd taken the Bake into a Pie, Savvy Hunter would be an incredible follow-up. When it attacks or blocks, you create a food token. You can sack 2 foods to draw a card. So it's really good in the green-black archetype, which has a lot of food production. As you saw with Bake into a Pie, that's just a removal spell that also makes a food. Whereas when we look at the red cards, Thrill of Possibility, Fling, Crystal Slipper, Claim the Firstborn, nothing good there. And the blue card for blue-red Witching Well, not great. So we're still going to have to take Savvy Hunter here, and we definitely would have been in a better position on Bake into a Pie into Savvy Hunter than Lock Dragon into Savvy Hunter. Pack 1 Pick 4 now. There's nothing really to go with the Savvy Hunter. Garenbrig Carver's okay. It's one of the more mediocre adventure creatures, but like anything with an adventure is fine. There's Merchant of the Veil, which is fine in blue-red draw 2, and then there's Overwhelmed Apprentice, which is excellent in blue-black mill. I think I'm just going to keep taking the strongest card in the pack, just really speculatively, and see what pans out, see what gets passed to us the most. So we'll take the Overwhelmed Apprentice here, which is a solid addition to a blue-red draw 2 deck because it does give us that scry when it hits the board, and there will be some cards that care about the number of cards in our opponent's graveyard, but it's going to be super, super good if we head down the blue-black mill path with cards like Run Away together to bounce it back, replay it, and mill our opponent even more. So we'll take the Apprentice here. Pick 5 now. Nothing good for green-black food. Wildwood Tracker's decent for green aggro if you have very low humans, or very low human count in your deck in general. Paladin, Fireborn Knight, these are solid options for mono red. 4 mana 5/2 haste, or just 4 mana 2/3 double strike that you can buff up. They're both incredibly hard to cast for any other deck, but there's not a lot we're passing up on in taking one of those, so probably one of the potential mono red cards here over anything else. So I'll go the Fireborn Knight here. Just double up on just super red hybrid mana cards. Okay, that's a Pick 6 Witch's Oven. Obviously, this is by far the best when you have the Cauldron Familiar, which is a 1 mana 1/1 cat. When it's in your graveyard, you can sack a food to bring it back and drain your opponent for a life. If we find a Cauldron Familiar to go with this, we kind of just win the draft if we ever get those 2 cards together, because you sack the cat to make a food, then you sack the food to make the cat, then you sack the cat to make a food. You do that every single turn, constantly draining your opponent out, and it's really hard to lose. So we're going to take the Witch's Oven a bit speculatively, but again, there's really nothing else going on in this pack. A lot of pretty weak stuff overall out of pack 1. For pick 7 now, we've got a Lost Legion, which would be fine in our black-green food deck, potentially. Nothing great for that blue-red draw 2 deck. Scavengers is fine. We'll probably have an artifact or an enchantment out. Throw Possibility would be fine. But I think it's Lost Legion. Or even Gingerbread Cabin. If we end up really heavy into green, then this can spit out a food for us to go with cards like Savvy Hunter when it hits the board. But I'd rather just be on Lost Legion here. Pick 8 now, another Lost Legion. A Scalding Cauldron, which fits into our deck as removal no matter what. Unexplained Vision for a big card draw spell. Twin Veil Treefolk for a great adventure. Curious Pair is a very good adventure in a green-black food deck. I think I'd rather just be on Scalding Cauldron, though, because we're so bouncing around right now. We're so, like, non-committal to where we're going. The Scalding Cauldron's a card that can definitely make the cut, no matter what direction we go, as a nice, cheap removal spell. For pick 9, see a Weaselback red cap if we go for aggressive mono red stuff, and no other cards in this pack that I would even play if I ended up in those colors. Pick 10 now. Incredibly weak pack with nothing that I'll play, so I'll rare draft the highest rarity card. And I'm assuming the rest of the pack is basically going to be that. Stuff that it's incredibly unlikely to get played. If I'm super deep into black, maybe Witch's Cottage. If I'm super just balls to the wall, mono red aggro, maybe I play Fling. These both feel real unlikely. Take the Fling, I guess. Alright. Pick 12, Merchant of the Veil. Venerable Knight and Merchant of the Veil are the best cards we've seen in several packs, so at least we'll get that Merchant of the Veil for mono red or blue red draw 2. And we'll take some nonsense. If you're ever drafting and wanting to rare draft yourself, you can always hold down the Alt key, and that'll tell you how many of each card you own. The check mark means you own a full playset. This set has been around forever, so I own most of it, but I do still like to double check if I'm strictly rare drafting. Anyways, pack 2, pick 1, does not see anything good for green-black food, does not see anything good for blue-black mill, does not see anything good for almost anything. I think, awkwardly, the best card in the whole pack is probably Castle Vantress by a tiny bit, but Redcap Raiders is pretty far up there. 3 mana for a 3/2, but it attacks as a 4/3 trample if you get to tap a non-human creature alongside it, so guess I'll just take Redcap Raiders because that's in the colors that we're going right now. Well, there's a Midnight Clock for blue. So that's mana ramp throughout the game, and eventually you just get to draw a new hand of 7 cards, which is just backbreaking later. So do I push into blue-red and just commit to that, or do I just take Lock Dragon, which could still work if we're blue-red, but also works if we go the full mono-red with Fireborn Knight and Slaying Fire? I think I'm going to take the card that's going to work for blue-red or mono-red, but we might be going blue-red here. We do see a green-black food card now, a Fierce Witchstalker at least, but feeling like I'm falling off of that as the plan. I'll take another Lock Dragon. There's a Rimrock Knight, great little aggressive mono red card. The Headhunter's good too, but it's really color restrictive to where we'll probably wheel it. Also, it's actually not that great. 4 mana, 2/3 menace, 3 mana sack a creature artifact. This actually feels like the most overcosted of all the hybrid mana cards. Most of them get a pretty good discount, in that they're giving you like really good stats for the 4 mana because of how restrictive their mana cost is. The Elite Headhunter really doesn't feel like it does that. This feels like it could have been like a black, red, and 2. And then just 3 generic mana to use, and it still would have been super reasonable. Alright, I'm going to take the Rimrock Knight. I need 2 drops on this curve. Embereth Paladin's fine too, but we need to get early on the curve, and there we go. Robber the Rich, mono red aggro. We're just going to play a historic mono red aggro deck now. Robber the Rich got that haste, and if we're dumping out our hand more quickly than our opponent, we get to start casting cards out of their library. Super busted. Easy mythic rare there. another Rimrock Knight, we might be able to get a Claim the Firstborn back, but I don't think we got the first one back, which is kind of weird. But easy Rimrock Knight. We're super heavy into red, where Searing Barrage is guaranteed to be adamant. We're going to deal 5 to a creature and 3 to the controller, so that's a good deal for 5 mana. Red cap's solid too, but let's get some of that late game burn in here. Now we can go ahead and take Wolverine, I guess, for just a 2-drop. Golden Egg can trigger the Wolverine. I don't think I want to play Jousting Dummy. I already have 4 2-drops that are all slightly better in some way or the other than the Jousting Dummy. The Golden Egg can also help if we do end up splashing a little bit of a second color. Let's take that Golden Egg. There's another Wolverine, which is not great, but a filler 2-drop in our color. If we're really all in on aggro, we can just use Blow Your House Down to get our last few points of damage in. Could just go for it. It could be funny. Who knows? Alright, Brimstone Trebuchets, whatever. We only need 5 more playables in the last pack. Ideally a little bit more so we can cut some lands and cut cards like Blow Your House Down, but we're going to try to do the thing here. When we've got a Robber of the Rich, double Rimrock Knight, Slaying Fire, Searing Barrage, and some of the hybrid 4-mana red cards, mono red feels like a decent place to be in this draft pod. We'll see how it pans out for us. See how much we get rewarded or punished in pack number 3. Oh. Oh, I really hate Arena sometimes. There's no playable red cards. I guess we could use Bargain or Fling, but I already have 1 Fling. I'm not going to play 2. I could use a Bargain, that's whatever, but they give me Garruk when I'm not on the green-black food deck. I'm just going to take Garruk. No one gets it. I'm not going to play a Fling or a Bargain anyway. I'll just rare draft that for collection at worst. That is so disappointing though, because I cannot hop back on green-black pack 3 when I have like 4 green-black cards. Alright, Weaselback Red Cap it is. We've made our bed and we will lie in it. Now we get another Searing Barrage or a 7 Dwarfs, but I think I'd rather have the gigantic burn spell. Gingerbroot's also good. Incredible pickup here, another Rimrock Knight. Scalding Cauldron, not bad at all as well. That was another option for that pack. I'm going to be playing like 3 humans in this deck, so Red Cap Raiders should be pretty consistent. We're only playing Robber of the Rich, Merchant of the Veil, and Fireborn Knight. How many knights do I have for Joust to be +2/+1 then fight? 6? It's not awful. Already got 3 4-drops. Sure, I'll try out the Joust here. Give a knight +2/+1, then fight another creature. Could be okay. It's really good on a Fireborn Knight, even if I just fight a 1/1 or something. Just giving my Double Striker +2 power for the turn is big. Pack 3, pick 6, Embereth Paladin, 4 mana 5/2 haste. Just hopefully we can wheel some Bargains. Actually, Castle Embereth is probably better. What's our creature count? 14. Embereth is really consistently going to be activatable, but we need to get that creature count up. Definitely crossing my fingers off this pick, but I'm going to take Castle Embereth, and there we go. We get an Embereth Paladin anyway. Get a Ferocity of the Wilds. It's not going to be that exciting. Get these Bargains to come back for some combat tricks. Get another 7 Dwarfs. So I've got... I guess that's my first one. Still a 2 mana 2/2 on curve. Alright. I mean, a good curve of creatures. Some very solid non-creature spells. We can cheese out some aggro victories here against some of the slower, grindier decks. That's probably the general game plan. Get 3 Bargains. Well, I know I can get those Bargains back. Well, you know what they say, at least we have a Garruk in our collection now. That's spicy, that's pretty cool. So, 45 cards. We don't need Golden Egg. We're pure mono red. We don't need that many lands. We're pure mono red. Puts us down to 43 cards. Check out our creature versus non-creature count. We're probably cutting Ferocity of the Wilds. Yeah, 3 cuts to be made here. Let's drop the Ferocity of the Wilds. Joust is kind of narrow as well. Player House Down is pretty narrow. We could just cut the most narrow cards. Still have just, I mean, we're going to be attacking all the time. Still have our +2/+2s. As combat tricks to leverage. Some of our cheap burn. And our big burn. Fling is a potential finisher, especially if we get our 5/2 down. That'll be insane. But there's definitely creatures we could cut. We don't have a lot of draw. We have like none. So Bloodhaze Wolverine is just a 2-mana 2/1. But still helps us out just curving out in general. And then Brimstone Trebuchet, we don't have a lot of knights, so it's just a 1/3 that pings our opponent for 1 every turn, but keeps the creature count high, so I guess that's just kind of where we're at. These kind of double Wolverine, Trebuchet. If we could swap these out for like 2 more 7 Dwarves and 1 more Weaselback Redcap or 1 more Redcap Raiders or something, yeah, swap these 3 for double Dwarves, 1 Redcap Raiders. And that's like the ideal like open mono red aggro deck, and then the deck looks pretty sweet. I don't think our deck was super open though, so we are left with some of these really mediocre creatures in the end. And that's kind of the only massive flaw I see in this deck, I think. Maybe I can even just cut another land, go down to 15, and just cut 2 of these. Although I do think I want to just cut all 3 of these, so we'll go 16 lands. I've got double Lock Dragon and Merchant of the Veil to get out of Mana Flood, so we'll keep 16 in our mono red deck, but I think we're going to call it a deck there. Alright, here we have a look at our final deck list for today. It's going to be a mono red aggro deck. We just have a great aggressive curve of creatures, some awesome burn spells to clear the path and shoot our opponent in the face, and that's what we're going to do. We're just going to try to curve out, get under a lot of these slower, grindier decks, and beat people down before they establish their great cards. We've got 2 Weaselback Redcaps that can get buffed throughout the game, some Bloodhaze Wolverine, and 7 Dwarves as just filler 2-drop creatures to get that curve going. Triple Rimrock Knight, which will be exceptional, getting extra damage in with Boulder Rush or helping us trade up into bigger blockers. Robber of the Rich can keep us fueled because we're going to dump our hand real quickly, and this will let us draw cards out of our opponent's library while getting some haste damage in. Brimstone Trebuchet is just going to sit there pinging our opponent no matter what's going on. Merchant of the Veil can get us out of any mana flood and help find what we need. Redcap Raiders can play like a 4/3 Trampler for only 3 mana, and then at 4 mana we got some big beef. We've got a 5/2 haste for 4, we've got a couple 3/2 flyers that let us discard a card and draw a card every turn, and a Fireborn Knight for a gigantic double striking threat. When it comes to our non-creature spells, with our great aggressive curve of creatures, we have 3 Bargains to give one of them +2/+2 to win combat and trample over a little bit. We've got a Fling to try to end the game later. If our opponent gets down to like 3 life, we have plenty of 3-power creatures to fling at them. We've got Slaying Fire to shoot our opponent in the face for 4 or clear out a creature, Scalding Cauldron to clear out a blocker, and a couple Searing Barrages to both clear out a blocker and deal 3 to our opponent's face, all in one. And last but not least, on top of all that, we have a Castle Embereth, so if we do have extra mana lying around, we can give our whole board +1/+0, and find a couple extra points of damage. So pretty nasty, pretty aggressive stuff today, definitely showing off the ability to play some monocolored decks in Throne of Eldraine, with cards with these hybrid mana costs in the format, and adamant cards like Embereth Paladin, Searing Barrage, and Slaying Fire, really incentivizing you to get heavy into one color. So should be some pretty spicy stuff. We'll see how it plays out for us as we head into the gameplay. Heckin' Bamboozled, we meet again. I don't remember what happened last time, but I definitely remember that username. We have played against Heckin' Bamboozled before. Is this going to be the mono-red mirror match? I hope not. That would be a pretty weird way to start off the draft, and it looks like it might be. That's 2 mountains, first 2 turns. Well, Heckin' Bamboozled already at the advantage, because if it's going to be a mono-red aggro mirror, being on the play is a massive advantage. I want to Merchant of the Veil and haggle away an Embereth Paladin or something here. Not really. I just want to drop Robber of the Rich and pass, because I don't want to trade it off into a 7 dwarves. But they might just have the cheap removal to kill it anyway. We have to just kind of take all that damage. It is really just feeling like we're just under a lot of pressure just by virtue of being on the draw instead of the play. If we were on the play, we would have been able to attack with a Robber of the Rich when all they had was a tapped red cap on board. Actually, no, they would have had 7 dwarves up. So we still couldn't have done that. And there's a Jousting Dummy. Yep. These Bargains play significantly worse on the draw as well. And since it's the mono red mirror, we are just not going to get our hand dumped fast enough at all. I think I have to just play like a 2-3 on blocks and pass. So Red Cap Raiders is just going to be a pretty bad blocker. I can't afford to attack with Robber of the Rich and have them just not block. And now if they have their own Bargains, we're going to get got. I think I'm about to get heckin' bamboozled again, which is a huge bummer. Yeah, I mean, I think I need to even just trade Robber of the Rich off defensively at this point. I guess we force them to dump some mana into the red gap by blocking that one, plus that one, once they're out of cards, is attacking as like a 5-1. Whereas the Jousting Dummy is only attacking as like a 3-1, because it takes 3 mana to give it 1 extra power. Alright, bamboozled we are. There's the Bargain. Should have been on the play. That was our big error this game. Guess I get to drop a Paladin and send that in as a 5-2 because it's a terrible blocker against these 2-power creatures. Could play a Cauldron and just shoot the dummy. Yeah, we are on the defensive here. We'll see what they have coming up. Bargains only attacking creatures get +2/+2, so we can wait till they go to combat and then shoot it. That way they can't just Paladin us, because then we can shoot the Paladin. Buff the dummy. Okay, go to combat, we shoot the dummy before they can Bargain. Could still stabilize here. Taking 2 a turn, so if they don't have burn, Paladin kills them in 4 swings, Dwarfs kills us in 5. We actually outrace them if they don't have like a Scorching Dragonfire to kill the Embereth Paladin. But they might have their own Embereth Paladin they just didn't play because we had a Cauldron on board, and then they definitely win the race. Got a Red Cap Raiders, that is scary, but at least it's not hasting. Okay, we're still in this game. Don't love how it started. But we're certainly not dead, and a Fling is a really big draw. We've got double Bargain and Fling here to just really get them. Hold up, wait a second. Are we about to bamboozle the Bamboozler again? I feel like that might be what happened last time. Oh, it's the human, it doesn't have trample. Oh. Well, I wasted a Bargain, so that's cool. I forgot we have humans in this deck. It's a human knight, so we don't get to trample. I've been heckin' bamboozled by my own cards. That's so disappointing. Am I about to get Bargain Flinged here? Let's see. Are those the last 2 cards? Rimrock Knight. Okay, just Rimrock Knight. Okay, the Rimrock Knight can't block. I could afford to buff Red Cap once, deal 8, and then Fling. If I had kept the other Bargain, I think I would have lethal this turn. 5, 6, 7, 8. 9, 10, and then fling for another like 7. Yeah, I would have had lethal if I realized that that was not a that was a human, so it wouldn't get trample. We might just die because of that. I might have got bamboozled out of it. Can still try to find a fling kill if I just hold 2 blockers up. Then I still just win with fling next turn. If they don't kill me this turn. Merchant of the Veil to haggle, discard a card and draw a card. See, I would have had enough mana to spend 2 on the buff of Redcap, 1 on a Bargain, and 2 on a Fling and kill them. And now they've got a Merchant of the Veil as another blocker, so I don't have a guaranteed Fling kill next turn. And I need to be worried about dying to a Bargain here. I think it's probably... This is rough, but I think it's probably better to leave a Redcap Raiders on board. I mean, if I leave Redcap Raiders on board, they block Embereth Paladin, Raiders hits for 3, and I still just die. I guess I'm on double trade? Or maybe block, fling, kill the merchant? I don't think I spend fling when it could just kill them out of nowhere. If I top deck a land, buff redcap, fling is lethal. Not a land. So we trade Paladin into Merchant. Play a Wolverine on blocks. Because if they don't block, they die anyway, so I don't need to attack with both. So this is just trade here, have a blocker up, then I play Wolverine to have 2 blockers up to be really sure I don't just die. Oh! Bamboozle the Bamboozler? That was a loose game. We could have had a kill a couple turns ago if I had held on to that Bargain. Really important to read that flavor text. That was the huge punt earlier in the game. Each attacking non-human creature gets trample until end of turn. So if my Paladin had gotten the trample, it would have been 9 power against like 3 toughness. I would have hit for like 6 trample. They'd be down to 9, and then I would fling a 9 power creature at their face and kill them. It wasn't getting trample, though. That was the huge punt of the game that almost cost us the whole thing. But some really lucky draws, and more specifically unlucky draws from our opponent, with them not finding another combat trick or burn to our face, does get us the victory there, but certainly felt like a luck-based win, where we were on the back foot from the start, and I needed to be playing as tight as possible, and I just wasn't reading my cards to the full extent like I should have been, so could have cost us the game there, but we do luck our way into a victory in round 1. Hopefully we can tighten some things up as we head into game number 2. Here we are now for game 2. Excellent creatures in this hand. Might just go 3-1 into 3-2 into 5-2 haste. A little interested in holding a Boulder Rush in my hand to help clear out a bigger blocker, potentially. Right, now that they played a Cauldron Familiar, I'm definitely interested in just holding onto Rimrock Knight, because trading my 3-1 Rimrock Knight into a 1-1 Cauldron Familiar is a terrible trade. This card is quite likely to keep coming back throughout the game, even if they don't have a Witch's Oven. And if they do, we're just never going to get through, and we're going to get drained out, and it's going to be really bad. Our opponent is on black-white with a tapped white land this turn. we will just jam in for 2 and play a red cap Raiders. And then probably play Embereth Paladin and have the red cap Raiders tap down our 7 dwarfs next turn, depending on what they play. If they play like a 2/2 blocker, that would be the best line. Actually, if they play a 2/2 blocker, we're probably just going to use a couple Boulder Rushes and play Rimrock Knights. Yeah. 5/2 Menace, is that good enough to offer the trade of Embereth Paladin for that? I feel like it is. So Embereth Paladin is going to trade into the Bell of the Brawl, and Raiders is going to trample over now. Actually, might be more damage to just attack with everybody. Yeah, this is probably better. But yeah, Paladin trades into the Bell of the Brawl. They maybe chump with Familiar, and then we get a few points of damage in. A couple points of damage in at least. Alright, yeah, it's going to be more damage because they just don't block the other creatures. So we got 1 additional point in by doing that. Our opponent is red, white, black Knights, most likely. Those are the 3 colors that overlap with all the Knights creatures like Bell of the Brawl and stuff. There's a Charming Prince, so they can exile and get the Cauldron Familiar to hold up as a blocker still. Drain us for another life. It's pretty good. So they've got the 3 toughness on board to double block red cap Raiders still. But since I drew into a Blood Haze Wolverine, I can just attack with both of them, and then at least the 7 dwarfs gets through if they do trade into red cap Raiders. Outflank, 2 damage to my 2 toughness creature, because they have 2 creatures. Alright. I mean, that does it. And then I will not tap my Blood Haze Wolverine. They will trade 7 dwarfs with Charming Prince. And I'll cast a Rimrock Knight. But this Cauldron Familiar looking real awkward for us. Our 1 toughness creature is looking super bad. On the plus side, they haven't played any food, so maybe it will just be a 1-for-1 trade and the Familiar won't come back anytime soon. They might just be all in on the combo where they don't have any food production outside of the Witch's Oven that pairs with Cauldron Familiar. Okay, well, there goes our hopes of attacking for eternity. A 2/1 First Striker does blank our deck until we hit removal. We have a lot of burn spells in our deck, but we've drawn like none game 1 or game 2 of this draft so far. We have 2 Searing Barrage, a Slaying Fire, a Scalding Cauldron. We've got 4 ways to clear that Youthful Knight out of the way. Okay, and there's Fairy Guidemother to get a few points of damage in the sky. We'll be down to 13. And the Fairy Guidemother hits the board, but the Trebuchet can block that forever. Robber of the Rich. That just dies to Youthful Knight. We just really need to draw a burn spell, ideally. I don't think our Rimrock Knight combat trick's really doing anything for us, so we might as well just get the extra Trebuchet damage in, get a wide board state, just all in on like top deck Searing Barrage. 1 top deck Searing Barrage or Bargain or something can significantly change the course of this game and get us into some really good attacks. Try to break through the position. If you count Bargains as ways to clear this board stall, which they absolutely are, then we have 7 outs, because we've got 3 Bargains as well. So we're hoping here. Youthful Knight coming in. They definitely have an adventure here, but I don't remember them well enough to know what their combat trick could be. Maybe it's the +1/+2 Death Touch or something. The fact that the Youthful Knight isn't up as a blocker is pretty exciting. I mean, honestly, I think I just take it. And then they just keep their combat trick in their hand and we just crack back. Oh, they're just going to cast it anyway? Alright. I guess since it is a creature, they want to get that creature down. Really sad that it untapped their Youthful Knight, so we don't actually get an attack in still. But pretty happy I didn't block. There's the barge in. Now we kind of sort of do get an attack in. But they've emptied their hand, so I don't get anything out of Robber of the Rich. If I hold one blocker up, what am I taking on the crackback maximum? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Not lethal, so we'll do it. And we use Bargain to kill the Youthful Knight. Lost Legion's going to get a free kill here. But we clear out most of the board, and most importantly, we clear out the Youthful Knight. Trample over a bit. All right. Top deck war commences. We have lost the top deck war. Draw 2, get a food, which means they get their Cauldron Familiar back, and they're now up 2 cards against us. Alright, continuing to lose the top deck war. Draw a card out of their deck, but Lost Legion just kills Robber of the Rich. Still drawn none of my burn in 2 games. I guess I hit a fling, but I wasn't counting that in my tally of my 4 great burn spells. My mountain, no! It's gone. Been destroyed. Actually, I mean, they can never know what's in our hand, but it actually would have been so much worse for us if they just cast that, because that's just a 4/5 flyer that kills us real quick. Because all I have is 2 chump blocks. So, getting a turn of breathing room against that is pretty nice. Alright, there's our own flyer. And they cannot block that well. They can chump with the Guide Mother, but the Reaper of Night doesn't actually block as a flyer, it only attacks as a flyer. Alright, there's the Reaper, which is a problem as I stated before. That's going to lead to some chump blocks from us. Drawn to a Bloodhaze Wolverine, which is kind of just a poopy butt. So we'll discard that and draw a card. Find another Lock Dragon. That's very legit. There's the chump from our opponent. If they don't clear out any of these dragons, then if I can just survive another turn, I just attack them for 6 in the sky. Alright, they can kill a dragon. So we're a little behind, but the game is still winnable. We've got a lot of burn spells that'll just kill them, especially if they do this. If they don't have lethal, they're looking at their hand though, so they probably do have some kind of trick for lethal. So I take 2 here. Is there a way to not die and not lose a creature? If they have anything, we die if I do this. But then if they don't have something, they die guaranteed, instead of us just crossing our fingers off the top when 45% of our deck right now is lands. I guess we get 2 draw steps to find lethal thanks to the dragon. I'll go for it. We'll see what they have. Alright, that's completely disgusting. Then we definitely wouldn't have had lethal anyway. They've got 2 Cauldron Familiar and Witch's Oven, so we're just screwed. Awesome. Does not matter how we play that one out. lose the top deck war pretty handedly, and they have the best 2-card combo in the format to close it out. Even if I played towards the potential Lock Dragon drawing a burn spell out, they could just keep the food, eat the food, and get a chump block with Cauldron Familiar. Yeah. Well under lethal, I think. Unless we hit... Even Searing Flame wouldn't be lethal, because they're going up to, like, 7 and blocking everything on the ground. Maybe... Or not Searing Flame. Searing Flame definitely wouldn't be lethal. I think Slaying Fire might have been our only card that potentially could have been lethal there, so I still think that was probably the best line we could have taken. Because our other line is like a 1 out of, what, 25 shot at victory. Bummer of a game there. Some really solid stuff from our opponent's deck, and we are now 1-1 as we head in Game 3. Here we are for Game 3, starting things off with Weaselback Redcap to get some damage in there. Playing against Blue-Black. The Garbage Fire Nightmare deck no one wants to play against in this format, from my perspective. My biased perspective. Drop Redcap Raiders. Blue-Black Mill is uncontestedly, statistically, just unarguably the strongest archetype in this format by a country mile. That part is not opinionated, that's just well known. So I am super scared when I see Island Swamp. And we are really flooding out here. We've got 7 lands so far. It is not ideal. So tiny. Awesome. 1 mana. Completely nullify my dork. At instant speed. They printed Swords of Plowshares. They printed Swords to Plowshares in blue in this format. Ooh, they milled their Revenge of Ravens. Get that nonsense out of here. That is unbeatable for us. There is not even anything I want to burn right now. Now they've just got the counterspell up for Lock Dragon. We don't really have a way to bait it out. I guess I can instant speed burn something and then go for Lock Dragon the turn after. This is actually a hand that might have a way to bait out the counterspell. We burn whatever they play during their end step, and then drop the dragon. Well, if they play nothing else, I have to just Searing Barrage and Eye Collector, and they just insta-pass. No shot they had a counterspell. So we drop the dragon, discard a card, draw a card. Ooh, Robber of the Rich. Ooh, baby. This could be a big turn. And they've got some kind of interaction, so maybe they just kill the Robber. Ooh, a Merfolk Secret Keeper. I actually get to cast a spell, even if they kill Robber of the Rich right now. No, you mill 4. Okay, they're gonna draw 4. Fair. I guess I don't get to play the 0-4, but what on earth is a mono red aggro deck gonna do with a 0-4? So they've got a super big hand. But we've resolved some creatures if they don't die. Especially if they don't mess with our Robber of the Rich. Well, they frogified our Robber of the Rich. Okay, now we don't have anything. Yep. So Dragon's tap down, and the Cauldron gets to kill the Lock Dragon. But Embereth Paladin is a fantastic draw. Hit them for 6 while they're tapped out, and I could even just Slaying Fire them down to 5 while they're still tapped out. Is that better? I mean, our board state's good enough. They need to spend, like, all of their mana dealing with our creatures, so I think it's better to have them just not know about the Slaying Fire than it is to try to get it under a counterspell here, because I don't think they're going to be able to afford to hold up a counterspell this turn when we have 9 power on board. Yeah, they're just going to play a Steel Gaze Griffin. I have 9 power on board. If I kill that with Slaying Fire, they're dead, unless they have 1-mana interaction, and Merfolk Secret Keeper's not interaction. Alright, we are going to get through the blue-black mill deck, just a really awkward draw for them where they did not do, like, anything early. And they just didn't have a Didn't Say Please for Lock Dragon. That was kind of, like, the game-winning moment for us, is that they couldn't just counter the Lock Dragon. That we got to resolve that and use that for some draw to hit other stuff. Immediately hit the Robber of the Rich as well that turn. That was a huge, super pivotal turn, because they really got the card advantage in the end with that draw 4 and some stuff, but absolutely ridiculous threats getting resolved on our side of the board, just finding them when they didn't have the interaction, and we are going to be 2-1 now as we head into game number 4. Here we are for game 4, on the play. That's where we want to be. Let's go. Get in there, my aggro dork friends. Redcap into Rimrock Knight into Redcap Raiders. No, don't play a 1-mana 1/2 on me. Oh, please, Lord, don't be blue-black again. Because this is going to be blue-black from a Mythic drafter this time. I think the other thing about our last opponent is that their deck was a little weaker for sure. They had some cards like Queen of the Ice and the Silver Griffin or whatever that are just not the most streamlined, most powerful cards for the blue-black mill archetype. Oh, why is Apprentice so awkward for us? Guess I just drop the knight and pass. Well, here it is, blue-black mill from a mythic number 153 drafter this time. I don't want it. Let's poke for 3 and drop a Redcap Raiders. Trade into the Apprentice it is. Fairy Vandal from our opponent. I was going to say, no way do they already have Drown in the Lock in hand. That would have been disgusting. That's counter if it costs less than the number of cards in grave, equal to or less, and I have 3 cards in grave already, so they can already, if they have that, 2-mana Drown in the Lock counter spell can already counter like the Redcap Raiders. Memory Theft, goodbye Embereth Paladin. Searing Barrage, never mind. Oh, don't hit the mountain. Pretty rough for the Embereth Paladin, but on the plus side, that means we wouldn't have had Searing Barrage mana for quite some time anyway. Well, could tap out for Merchant of the Veil, or play a Redcap, buff Raiders with that Redcap and still have the mana to buff the other one, so they can't block without trading. And while I don't love losing some creatures here, trading into a Fairy Vandal's fine, because that thing's going to get bigger as time progresses. And they're just going to take it all, so they take 7, go down to 13. There's an epic downfall on the Redcap Raiders. Drawn to a Bargain, and that makes this attack incredible. Because it's going to look like I just want to buff whichever one they block. But I can just Bargain instead. And not even lose the creature. And they're down to 9. I probably should have just stacked it all on the 1, just in case somehow the Bargain got countered. I'd still trade into the Fairy Vandal. Mill Mountain, Embereth Paladin, no! Scry 1 at the top, 1 at the bottom. And there's a Quarter Monitor. That's actually brutal. 4 toughness. Super bad for me. Embereth Paladin just gets double blocked, but I clear out the Quarter Monitor. I trade my 5/2 for a 1/4. This body's insane for a 2-mana card. Yeah, I hate this position all around, but here we are. I have to get a quarter monitor out of the way. That would be really good if they couldn't counter it. Probably just jam out the Merchant of the Veil. See if I can get a counterspell out of their hand. They are not going to counter it. Does not mean that they don't have a counterspell. It means they have something better they want to do, like draw 4 cards. Now, if they didn't have a counterspell before, they are incredibly guaranteed to have one now. They only need a blue and a black up in this archetype to be able to counter anything at this point because of Drown in the Loch. Tap out. Alright, Robber of the Rich hits the board, but a 2/5 is going to kill it immediately. Find a Brimstone Trebuchet. Do I just resolve that? So I can chip away for damage even if they counter everything I do? I still think I'm supposed to just resolve Robber of the Rich. And maybe I'm supposed to just buff a red cap up to 5 power to kill a Sage of the Falls. So we just send 1 red cap in, and then if they just block with Apprentice, I only buff it once. If they block with Sage, I double buff. Okay, and if I'm forced to just buff once here, then we drop Robber the Rich post-combat, and that's fine. Secret Keeper, down to 18 cards. More importantly, they get a 0/4 blocker. They draw a card, discard a card. Another Reeve Soul. There's the Witching Well to scry 2 and then draw 4 soon. To double buff the red cap to win the fight against Sage or Secret Keeper. So if I attack with red cap, they're just going to block with Secret Keeper. I'm going to have to spend all my mana to do that. I think I just play Trebuchet while they're tapped out. Pass from there. I'm going to get the 5th mana on the board, but if I draw any lands after this point, I'll start haggling them away to Merchant of the Veil most likely. 2 hit a Bloodhaze Wolverine, which is interesting with the Merchant. Here's a Weaselback. Block with Sage. Probably have a So Tiny now to win this fight too. It's still basically a 1-for-1 because So Tiny already nullifies Red Cap's ability to do anything regardless. Unless I spend like 50 mana. Run away to get... Oh, yep. That is the combo that you want to draft around with your blue-black mill decks. Merfolk Secret Keepers and Runaway Togethers. So that's... You just keep milling your opponent and slowing them down at the same time. You get an additional mill 4 every time you run away together, and they have the Lucky Clover too. You get an additional mill 4 every time you run away together, while also being able to chump block a creature of any size with the Secret Keeper without it dying, and completely nullify all the damage from another card. Run away together plus Secret Keepers just busted. Well, that's how I thought last game was going to go. Back to the blue-black mill lottery. I don't want to see it again as we head into round 5. 2-2 now. Here we are on the play for round 5. We've got that turn 1 Weaselback Redcap to get in there, dump any of our extra mana into just getting a couple extra points of damage throughout the early game. They've got the Wildwood Tracker though, so we're probably going to insta-trade. And that is the case, but that's fine because we're basically trading into a 2-2, the Wildwood Tracker. When they have any other non-humans is going to attack and block as a 2-2 all day long. They are on green-red, which is like the non-human aggro archetype. There's the Scorching Dragonfire to deal with Merchant of the Veil. Spending just 2 mana to kill our 3-drop, which is an incredible deal. Now just 3 mana to kill our 4-drop, so we play Lock Dragon instead of Paladin, so we don't just trade down. And even if the dragon dies, we get some value getting a mountain out of our hand to swap into something else. Red, black, and green. There's their own Embereth Paladin, just for a 4-1. Send in the squad. Gonna be a race here. We hope they don't have any more haste. We just drop our own... I guess I could play Fireborn Knight and try to get a barge in with that to kill them later, but they see that coming and they get chump blocks pretty easily. I think I'd rather just play the Paladin and just slam in for 8 and just go for races here. Find a Rimrock Knight. Rimrock Knight barge in conjunction is a lot of damage. It's actually exact lethal if they just don't block, but they're definitely going to block Paladin with the Witch Stalker. Never mind, they're dead. They got greedy and went for 1 extra point of damage, and for that, they will perish. Oh my god, are they gonna perish? I have like 50 different ways to kill them right now if I want to. I'll just make Paladins super big to send a message. There we go, 14 damage, and we are now 3-2 guaranteed to get at least a 50-50 run out of this deck, which is pretty nice. Because I think I got a little glued to mono red as a fun, cute archetype here, and maybe didn't draft perfectly, so getting at least 1,000 gems back, at least an average run, does make me pretty happy today. So we'll see if we can't get a few more wins though, and break even, maybe even get in the money here. We'll see how it all pans out for us as we head into round number 6, 3-2 so far. Here we are now for game 6. We're on the draw. Not a big fan of that. We also don't have a 1-drop red cap here. Please don't be the mono red mirror on the draw again. They do have a mountain, so they're at least probably aggressive. Unless they're blue-red, I think that's the only non-aggro, but even that can be pretty aggressive. They do get their turn 2 Improbable Alliance, which could be really bad for me if they just play like a Tome Raider next turn for a 1-1 flyer that draws them a card. They're going to have 2 1-1 flyers out, and it's just going to be impossible to get a Rimrock Knight through. Even 1 1-1 flyer is pretty bad for me because it forces me to spend a barge in, a combat trick on something that didn't even cost them a card. They just got it for free. I guess it sort of did. They had to play Improbable Alliance, but still. Alright, good draw. Now I can play a solid-sized creature and barge in at the same time. Without having to use my Rimrock Knight, which I don't really want to do when they can just spit out 1-1s. Rather play a 2-2 than a 3-1 right now. There's another opt. Another 1-1 flyer for them with the Improbable Alliance. Another 7 dwarves, that's great. They got the duplicates there. That's pretty rough for us. Find a Searing Barrage. Alright, well, no attacks with Rimrock Knight for sure. I guess I could just Cauldron a Dwarf and attack for 2, or I just play Redcap Raiders and pass. I'm not loving our options here. I'll just drop the Redcap Raiders. Oof, that one's really gross. The Tome Raider. Get a flyer on the board, draw a card, get another flyer on the board with Improbable Alliance. We are just not going to break through this board state. And the main deck red cap melee, which just main deck mono red hate. Card is significantly worse if you're using it against a non-red deck. So we're just getting hosed in absolutely every way possible here. It's gonna be 3-3. I don't think there is any comeback from this at this point. So just trade Rimrock Knight into a 1/1 fairy to take less damage, but literally just never gonna miss an Improbable Alliance trigger. Rolling out the Alliance turn 2, never missing a turn with it. It's gonna be really hard for anything to beat, but especially an aggressive deck that's trying to break through. They'll just always have blockers. Just take 9, go to 1. Yeah, there's just no shot. Alright. 3-3 on the day. Not horrible for the deck. I think today was not an incredible day in terms of how well I drafted or played or anything. So 3-3 is about probably where we deserved to be here. It was a fun draft for sure, getting to go hard on the mono-red strategy, but I think one of the best spots to be probably would have been maybe pushing into blue a little earlier to go for a full-on blue-red deck. Or if we went full-on on the Savvy Hunter. I think the biggest draft decision was our pack 1 pick 2. We had a Slaying Fire, which I think that was a super fine pack 1 pick 1, honestly. But then pack 2, Bake into a Pie over Lock Dragon, just not getting immediately tied on red, would have really set us up. Because then we get Bake into a Pie into Savvy Hunter, and that convinces us a little more thoroughly to head into green-black, where we were seeing multiple Lost Legions at least to pick up. And if we took the Bake into a Pie, we're sending less black cards to the left, so maybe green-black's a little more open. Of course, we find that Golden Egg, which works fine in the green-black deck. We find the Witch's Oven. But a massive part in how good our green-black deck would have been is something that we couldn't have seen coming, which is just that we opened a Garruk. So maybe a lot of this is just like hindsight bias of we know that we were going to open up a pack 3 Garruk. So with 0 hindsight, I think it's still fair to say that I probably shouldn't have gone so heavy onto mono red and potentially like picked a secondary color, maybe red green non-human beatdown or red blue draw 2 with the double Lock Dragon. Because while I do think the majority of our deck was pretty solid, the creature curve, a lot of these burn spells and stuff, we did have to play some more mediocre filler to get there, because red wasn't quite as open as we would have wanted it to be, where we do have like a couple Bloodhaze Wolverines that just do very, very little in this deck, a 7 Dwarves without any other copies, a Brimstone Trebuchet, some stuff like that. That's just not quite the power level we want it to be. So we definitely got punished for sticking to mono color because we have some cards that are just not quite up to par. But for the most part, 3-3 is still a respectable run. So that's everything I think went wrong today. I don't really have massive overperformers or underperformers like I usually like to do. I guess Fireborn Knight really kind of did nothing and we never wanted to cast it all that much. So that was a pretty big underperformer. For overperformers, what was something that really impressed me a lot more than I thought? Bargain was actually just really good because we were attacking all the time. That was the only time we were trying to win. I obviously misplayed with it pretty hard, trying to give one of my humans trample, But for the most part, I think Bargain did a lot better than I thought it would. It's a nice little +2/+2 combat trick on the aggressive. But that is going to end today's draft. We're going to grab our 1,000 gems or 2 packs and move on. But that is also going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube members for their support, as well as you for watching the video. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below, and if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link or the join button below. Other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.